यंकरवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। शांति मंत्र। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। फर्स्ट मंत्र यू कैन रिपीट। ओम ईशावास्यमिदगं सर्वम् यत्किंच जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथाः मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम्। So this is the first mantra. And as we know, this whole Upanishad has 7 different waves. In that, this is the one mantra is the first wave. The highest for the Uttam Adhikari, this is the mantra. One whose mind has been purified, whose mind has been prepared. For that person, this is the instruction. Who is on the verge of realization, that Uttam Adhikari, to that person, this mantra is addressed. So what does the mantra say? Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. Meaning, look at this whole world as the manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because that is the truth. Why that is the truth? We saw 3 laws of causation. Do you remember 3 laws of causation? What is the first law? If there's an effect, there has to be a cause. So if the world is there, there has to be a cause. The truth has to be there. Now, second law says the effect itself is the cause in another form. This whole universe is nothing but the Supreme in all these names and forms. But how to know that Supreme then? The third law. From the effect, if the cause is removed, effect is gone, but cause remains. So from this world, what we have to do, the names and the forms which are there, which we are seeing today, and we are forgetting the truth, the essence, the mantra is saying that pervade the world with the vision of the divine, that this whole universe is an appearance of the divine alone, and these names and forms don't exist actually, but they are an appearance. At this level, for us, they are an appearance. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. So God alone is real, actually speaking. All this is an appearance of the Supreme. Today we are not seeing God at all. We are seeing only names and forms. It's like saying we are only seeing the wave, but we are not seeing the water. While we are seeing the wave also, what are we actually seeing? Only water. We are not seeing anything else but water. We're calling that water as wave. Same way, all this is divine, but we are not seeing the divinity. We are looking at the divinity and calling it as name and form, and then asking where is God, which God, what God. You are looking at God only. What else are you looking? But the Uttam Adhikari is the one who gets that vision clearly because the mind is ready for it. Why do we say the mind is ready for that person? Because we have attachment to the name and form, so we are not able to see the divinity, though it is divinity only appearing here. So Isha Vasyam, the instruction is pervade this whole world with the vision of the Supreme. Now who is this Isha? Last time we saw this. Isha means the ruler, controller, whatever we call it, governor, illuminer. All this is one who controls, who governs, who pervades the whole universe. And so what is that which is actually the essence of this whole universe, without which the universe does not exist at all? That is what we call as Sat Chit Anand. That existence, consciousness and bliss, Sat Chit Anand, is this Isha. Satchidanand only pervades this whole universe. How do we even know that it pervades the whole universe? See, law of causation is one aspect. So logically we can understand that the cause alone pervades the whole effect. And what is the cause here? The cause of the universe is not inert. That's why this mantra is a very, very powerful mantra. Last time we discussed that if this one mantra remains, the whole Vedic philosophy can be revived. Because it has everything inside it. For the individual also, for the creator, for the world also, creation also. So if we take from creation standpoint first, that what is that without which the creation cannot remain? That is existence, consciousness and bliss. Why do we say that? Because even from matter standpoint, we say matter cannot be destroyed. Forms can change, but matter is indestructible. This though is not even at matter level. We are talking at the consciousness level. So what is the source of this whole universe? If cause alone pervades the whole effect, if the world is the effect, we see this whole universe of so many diversities, names, forms, everything. What can be the cause? Can the cause of this whole universe be inert? Why it cannot be inert? Science though believes that no. Atom, proton, neutron, electron, string, quarks is all inert matter only. Why inert cannot be the cause of the whole universe? So then why can't inert matter come together and become dynamic? That's the thing that science is also telling. Inert matter coming together in a certain combination, dynamism is created. Inert cannot create anything. So no, so that's correct, na? Effect is different form of cause. So if effect is inert, cause is also inert. That's the same logic we can apply, no? Effect we are seeing inert, cause is inert. But why inert cannot cause? Effect is inert, cause has to be inert. Is the effect inert or sentient? Now that is the confusion. Inert is sentient or, effect is sentient or inert? So many are having a doubt now. Don't give me explanation. Just say inert or sentient. Effect is inert or sentient. Step by step. Effect is not sentient, but cause is sentient. But law of causation says effect is cause in another form. So conscious cause, sentient cause is producing inert effect. That's why the first you decide effect is inert or sentient. Effect is sentient. That sentiency is belonging to the matter. Matter is inert. So it came from where? Matter came from where? Matter came from consciousness. So now inert is, conscious is producing inert or not? स्वामी जी कंफ्यूजन हो गया अभी. Matter never produces anything. Matter doesn't exist only. That is the highest level. We are not talking about that level at the moment. I am talking at this level. Matter with the help of consciousness can do something. Okay, that's because we have learned Vedanta. Right now, if we keep our mind open, we don't know anything in Vedanta. From that background, if we are inquiring, that effect is inert, we said, and cause is sentient, we are saying. Vice versa. So cause is inert, now effect is sentient. Arey kamal hai. Effect is sentient. Cause is sentient. So effect has its own sentiency. See, we should be very clear about that. Effect is inert. You are saying no, effect is sentient. Cause is also sentient. Effect and cause both are sentient. Then inert matter came from where? I am testing you because I have already taught you this. You forgot. Upanishad, if you don't remember the background properly and the build-up and introduction properly, maha confusion will happen. I have taught you this. Actually, I have taught this. If you remember. Arey, don't bring Chidabhas. That time also I told you, don't bring Chidabhas and all into play unnecessarily. I am giving you the hint. 3 causes. 3 causes. I taught you 3 causes. When I spoke Purnamada, Purnamidam, I taught you everything. Actually, Ishavasya Upanishad is a elaboration of that what I already taught in Purnamada, Purnamidam. Arey, to know, to be happy and to live forever are not 3 causes. They are 3 inborn desires. What are the 3 causes for any creation? Material cause, instrumental cause, and intelligent or efficient cause. 3 causes. Okay. This intelligent cause is the consciousness, which appears to us as the material instrument cause also. So as the material cause, it appears inert, but it is not inert. 5 elements came from where? From Maya. Maya came from Ishvara, consciousness, Brahman. Brahman's power is Maya. That Maya produces 5 elements. But it cannot produce 5 elements by itself. It is enlivened by what? Consciousness only. But it empowered by consciousness, still it can produce, because Maya's nature is the material cause. So 5 elements will come out in 3 gunas. Then the permutation combination of 5 elements plus 3 gunas makes the variety in the universe. But by itself being inert, any material cause and instrumental cause by itself cannot function. Like mud by itself cannot make itself into a pot. There has to be a intelligent cause. That intelligent cause is what is referred to as Isha here. And that Isha is the inner controller of everything. When we say controller, it doesn't mean only controlling as we think, as some ruler, controller, dictator, not like that. Enlivener. That's why the last word I've used here is illuminer, enlivener. Is the enlivener actually, which makes the inert appear as the sentient. But today we have thought that this inert has its own sentiency, that this is functioning on its own. So to the highest qualified student, the master is saying, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Pervade this whole universe with the vision of consciousness, because that's the highest level for this prepared student. So these levels we should understand. First level is what? Level 1 is world is real, God doesn't exist. Okay. I'm going to use a thicker pen now so that people who are in webinar can see clearly. First level is simple to understand. That's our level right now. World is real and God doesn't exist. No, Swamiji, for us God exists. So this is a beginner level. Atheist level will be this. World is real fully. God does not exist only. From there we come to another level. So where we say world is real and God exists, because I understand law of cause and effect. That if effect is there has to be a cause. How can there be no cause? It's not a random creation out of nothing just appeared somewhere. This is also easy to understand. And not only the law of causation, we are seeing just now what we did was that the analysis that when we are seeing things around, it is not inert alone. We are seeing sentiency also. So there has to be some cause. So this is the second level, that world is real and then God exists. But what people do here is, instead of saying God exists, they will say there is a cause that exists, and that cause is what? Nature. Nature as cause exists. Very few people will even try to inquire what is this nature. So many people out there today also believe what? They say, I don't believe in God, but I believe in nature. What do you mean by nature? If we mean by nature laws, can laws by itself come into existence? It cannot. By nature, do we mean plants, trees, birds, rivers? That is a part of the world already. How can that be the cause of the world? No, it's energy, it's power, which is appearing as all this. But any power is inert, no? Like this nature, when we say it is an inert power. And the amount of laws that we are seeing functioning in the world, the harmony that is there, all that, from where that is coming? It doesn't happen by itself. There has to be a sentient power. Now, if that sentient power you want to call it as nature, then we don't have a problem. You are calling God only as nature. So slowly, as one thinks more deeper, the third level is world is real and God also exists. Nature is the power of that God. Call it consciousness, God, reality, truth, whatever name you give. This much also, if one comes to know, is a big progress. Please remember this, I am talking levels in terms of conviction, where there should be no doubt. Because progress will happen only if there is conviction that of course God exists and God is of the nature of consciousness. Then only I can realize God as my nature. Otherwise, I have doubt in existence of God, I have doubt in the nature of God, I have doubt in the nature of the world. How will I progress? That is not possible to progress. So this has to be very thought through very clearly. The world is real and there is a sentient cause behind the world. That sentient cause is the infinite cause, and that is consciousness, which we are calling as God. This much is clear. Now comes the fourth level, where we try to understand this, that the world is illusory, God is real. Why? Law of causation we saw. Effect is nothing but cause in another form, and it is actually, effect doesn't exist in that sense. It is only an appearance of the cause, but still that appearance is there, so it is an illusory appearance. So snake is there, but the person has understood that the snake is an appearance of the rope. Mirage water one sees, one knows that there is no water there, but one is still seeing, so one will see it as a illusion. This is the sadhana level, that when I keep thinking of this world as an illusion, then my attention will slowly turn within. Please remember, this is not said only by philosophers and Vedantins. This is said even by scientists. Albert Einstein himself said that the world is an illusion, but it is a persistent illusion. He said it very clearly. He said it's a persistent illusion, so it appears to us as very real. Like the dream, continuously, as long as I'm in the dream, appears to be very real. So one who understands that though it is just because it is persistent doesn't mean it becomes real. Movie is persistent or not. Full 3 hours you see the movie. But do you think it is real? Just because you saw the movie. Sometimes the movie is long, some 3.5 hours movie. Does that it make it real? No. So though it is an illusion, though it's a persistent illusion, it doesn't make it doesn't make it real. So this is the sadhana level, that a seeker does this vivek constantly, that I am seeing this, but this is illusion. So I may do my duties in the world, but my psychological dependence on it will all end. I do it with the attitude of using this experience to quieten the mind, purify the mind, so that I can realize the truth. When I live like that in sadhana level, now to such a student, this instruction is given, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam, that the world is God. There is no world in that sense. There is God alone here. Now this has to be realized first in the quiet moments of contemplation. Then one can actually experience it, that this whole universe is an appearance of the divine. What we try to do is, we don't try to withdraw the mind, we don't try to quieten it, and then we try to see world is God. So I'm not seeing God anywhere outside. I'm still seeing name and form. And then they will show in the movie, in the Bhagwan is there in the hearts of all. Suddenly that devotee will see the picture of the Lord in everybody's heart. So now we are seeing, मुझे तो कोई picture नहीं दिख रहा है. That is it, because they have a limitation in that visual medium. They have to show it like that. You are not going to see suddenly that, okay, Krishna is shining in the hearts of all people like that, and he's playing the flute, and one mukut is there, and one more pinch is there. Oh, now I can see Krishna in him, in her, in that person little less Krishna I am seeing. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. All that is our imagination. In meditation, I have to learn to withdraw my attention from all that is unreal, and then I will see, when I experience the divinity within, I will see world as God. This is an instruction given to that seeker, that see the whole universe as appearance of the Lord. The result of this is what? The result of this is the 6th level, that is a samadhi avastha. God alone is, world disappears. In samadhi it is gone. There is no world. There is no meditator, there is no meditated, there is no meditation, there is only consciousness. Now when that person comes out of that state, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, continuous practice, then that person gets established in that state. That person now is realized. Now that person doesn't see any difference at all. He will see everything as God alone. So this difference of Jiva, Jagat, Jagadishvara, all gone. So this is the result. Sixth level is the result. Fifth level is the mantra, what this is saying to the seeker, that Isha Vasyam, you pervade the whole world with the sense of divinity. What will happen with that? No raga and dvesha at all. That seeker lives in the world without raga and dvesha. You see, raga and dvesha is there because we don't see divinity. We see names and forms, and then we have attachment. Mamakaha, Pandavaha. That will happen. This is a seeker who has lifted oneself beyond raga and dvesha. Such a pure mind, to that person it is said, see the whole universe as God. No, but Swamiji, what to speak about those people who are hurting me, causing me pain, all that. Terrorists, are they also God? They are. For that spiritual seeker who is ready, will see everyone as an appearance of God only. Will not hate. If required to do certain duty, will do. Like Krishna Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, ki fight and kill the Kauravas. That's at the transactional level, one has to do the duty, one will do. But there is no hatred in the heart for Duryodhan or for Dhritarashtra or for anybody. So this is that. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Now how do I even know that there is something which is like Isha existing? So the next line says, Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. Even the minutest thing in the world. So Jagat and Jagatyam. What does the two words sound the same? Jagatyam and Jagat. So one meaning is the objects in the world. That is the word Jagat. And Jagatyam is a word itself. Objects in the world are changing, and the world also by itself is changing and perishable. What is that without which the world will not remain is this consciousness. Consciousness can remain without the world. World cannot remain without consciousness. So that changeless consciousness exists is proved by the very fact that this entire world is changing. The world by itself is going to, even science says what? This world is in a continuous state of expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. So we think about Big Bang as the beginning. But if you read science, they will say Big Bang is actually the contracted state of the universe. From there again it will expand. Again after a point it starts contracting, again it will become a dot. Again, this will continuously keep happening. This is called Jagatyam Jagat. The world by itself is changing, and inside the changing realm, obviously a lot of objects, people, things, our bodies, mind, everything is changing. This continuous realm of change, in that we don't see the changeless. Now you see the two extreme conditions. Those who are not aware of the reality are stuck only in the change. And this highest level of student is being told that this entire realm of change pervade with the vision that this is all changeless alone, appearing here like this. So Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. See, this mantra, if one understands, this is one of the main reasons why Sanatana Dharma is all accommodative. Please remember, we are an accommodative religion. We are not tolerant religion. Simply they have put this word into our head, tolerant. Whom do you tolerate? You tolerate a pain. Do you tolerate your child, or do you love your child and accommodate the child? Love, na? Pain we have to tolerate. When you say Hinduism is very tolerant, means what? Painfully we have tolerated all the people staying in this country. We have accommodated everybody with so much of love. Why? Because we don't see difference at all. We see all of us are existence, appearance of one divinity. With that bhav, we love everybody. And when it says Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat, what does it mean? Both the world of inert and sentient, both inert and sentient, the entire world pervade this by the vision of the truth, that God alone is all this. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. So when we say even in Guru Stotram, Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. The highest knowledge is this, the vision of oneness. Which level of oneness is Vedanta talking about? And so many people say spirituality, it will take us away from life, divorce us from life, and enthusiasm, this, that, it creates discrimination, distinction. Spirituality is to break all kinds of distinctions at the psychological level. No distinction. Because the only unifying factor truly is consciousness, which is what Vedanta is telling us. At any other level, can there be absolute oneness? You tell me. Even if we say, no, we all are living beings. But living beings are also having so much variety or not? So many 84 lakh species of living beings, and then very fact that we are living is separating us from the non-living. No, we all are human beings. No, even in human beings, all different types of human beings are there. Any level we take, at some level we will be able to include many things. At some level that itself will exclude many things. But at the level of consciousness alone, there's unification. One. What level Vedanta goes to is to teach us such humility. How much ego we have as human beings, the roof and crown of creation and this and that we have achieved. But Vedanta is a big leveler. Why? Because it will tell us you are equal to the stone. Why? The existence in that stone is the existence here. There is no difference at that existence level at all. And that existence is imperishable. It is infinite. So why am I getting stuck with the perishable? Having such a big ego of that perishable thing, when the fact is my true nature is infinite, when I am all pervasive, I am thinking of myself only as one little entity. Then raga and dvesha happens. So our culture of vision of oneness springs forth from these type of mantras. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. So we have ensured that we lose our sense of ego in this vision of the divine. So we say Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. All of these are gods for us. Every single thing we have worshipped here in this universe, right from a stone, cow, Tulsi, Ashwatha, rivers, Gangaji, mountain, star, sun, anything you take. And what types of divinity we have in this country. No culture has this level of concepts of divinity in the whole world even today. Such a glorious, beautiful culture. And maximum violence is because of people who don't have this broad vision. And they are out to destroy this culture. And we are not even aware of this. And we are happily supporting those people also. Those people who are sectarian are trying to destroy a culture which is universal. And people who are the custodians of that universal culture are supporting those who are sectarian to destroy their own culture. Can there be greater foolishness than this? And we are doing it. Our own younger generation is also doing it because they don't know these things. They're brainwashed by so many facts. So one has to be made aware of these things, that this is the beauty of our culture. And this you see in every aspect. In family life also you will see, they will say, treat everyone as divine. In our temples you will see, in music, literature, art, everything there will be a pervasiveness of divinity. So Ishavasyam idam sarvam. That culture which understands the omnipresence of the Lord and the transcendental nature of the Lord, that culture cannot hate anybody. See, the biggest challenge for many cultures today in the world is that they do not believe in the all-pervasiveness and omnipresence of the Lord. They only believe in the transcendental nature of the Lord, that Bhagavan is indescribable. You try to make a drawing of it, finish, they'll burn everything. And we have fallen to another extreme level that anything anybody does to our culture is accepted. Why? Ishavasyam idam sarvam. There's a wrong interpretation of it. Such a beautiful culture. Why should that get destroyed? Every single person who has come into this country, persecuted anywhere or came to persecute us, both of them have got accommodated and assimilated as a part of this country. So that one should never forget. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. We respect all living beings. Live and let live philosophy comes from here. That you can be anybody. You can follow any path. You can follow any method. We don't have any problem. Why? Because we inherently respect the divinity of all. So Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Even the minutest part of this universe for us is the divine. And you know the beauty of this I am talking from Vedanta standpoint. You can talk even from science standpoint. That if you go to the subatomic level, there is no difference in the atoms of this body, of this table, of this mic, of a plant, of a bird, of a animal. No difference. Absolutely no difference. Atomic level, no difference. Go to energy level also. Those people who are doing this pranic healing and this and all that, they will also know. Energy level also, there is oneness. Of course, energy will have high, low, expressions are different, but energy level also there is oneness. Vedanta level also there is oneness. Raw material level also there is oneness. Those of you who have studied Tattva Bodh, you know our body is made up of 5 elements. Our mind is made up of what? Subtle 5 elements. Where is the difference? Only in the combination of these is difference. Otherwise, raw material is also same. Everybody has Pancha Vayu or not? Pancha Pranas. Same. Prana level also same. Body level also same. Mind level also same. Conscious level also same. All these levels there is only oneness. This vision of oneness is what the mantra is saying. Let this whole universe be pervaded by that. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Now so many saints who have lived with this vision, they are the people who have been really able to bring about transformation. Because from this vision of oneness, what happens with this vision of oneness? Where there is oneness, there will be love. We experience love where there is oneness or not. If the neighbor's son is playing cricket and breaks your window, what happens? I punish that fellow. You should know how to play in control. Your son breaks somebody's window. Chota bachcha hai, jaane do. Forgive him. Ye to hote rehta hai. Why? Because there is an attitude of oneness. My son. Oneness wherever there is. Gujaratis, they will meet. And the moment they find out that person is a Gujarati, immediate connect happens. And suppose they find they are from the same place of Gujarat. તમે બી કાઠિયાવાડ ના, હું પણ કાઠિયાવાડ ના. અરે વાહ, કાઠિયાવાડ બેવે જોયું નહીં હોય અત્યાર સુધી જીવનમાં. છે મુંબઈમાં. But the moment they see oneness, what happens? As though they have known them each other for lifetimes together. The immediate bond they will strike, So where there is vision, there will be love. Where there is oneness, there will be love. Where there is love, one will follow values. Will you want to hurt anybody whom you love? We want to serve them, we want to take care of them, we want to give our best to them. We don't want to cheat them, punish them, hurt them, none of that. So all good values will follow from love. And where we have values and we love somebody, we will always do our duty towards them. Now, this principle, if we apply, see, this is highest principle we are talking in terms of spiritual realization. In our day-to-day life also, in even a single relationship, you can apply this. Suppose there's a conflict in a relationship. I don't like somebody. The root of that conflict will be what, you know? This only. Now, what this person didn't do like this for me. Or they did like this for me, they were not supposed to do like this for me. At action level, we may find some conflict, but really speaking, the conflict is not at action level. Really speaking, conflict is at oneness and love level, these two. Because if other person does that, somebody whom I really love, they do it, it will still hurt me, but I will still accommodate, I will speak, I will try to adjust. So where is the real issue? The real issue is in these two. If I am able to invoke love and see the positive aspect, my whole mindset will start changing. Then I will do values, duty, everything. So these are a lot of practical implications also. Wherever we work, can we work with the vision of oneness? Today, if you think about it, so much is happening in this country. Why? One of the reasons it is because we don't have only the vision of oneness. Who thinks about India? Each one is thinking about their own particular power, position, politics, fame. Where? Vision of oneness has to be there. It's common sense. What is being, the act has been passed, CAA, is a common sense. There is no need to do any kind of violence on the name of it. But what all is happening? Why? Because there is no sense of oneness. Love is not there. Why? If these two are not there, what will rule, Selfishness. In the absence of this oneness and love, selfishness will be the maximum. I, that's all. At the cost of being illogical and stupid. I have said it, it is right. Arey, it is wrong, Baba. And what is most painful is, see, violence has happened, many things have happened, is no doubt painful. But what is the most painful is the youth are misled. The youth are misled and the youth are thinking in an illogical way. Now, where is the future of the country then? And they are thinking in a logical way, you see. That's the sad part of that. Literally, they are being used by people. Just used. And one doesn't realize. This, again, as I'm saying, this applies in every situation. In a company where there is no vision of oneness, there will be all fights. In a family, you see Ramayana and Mahabharata, both are examples of this or not. Happily, they could have coexisted or not. Kauravas and Pandavas. And Pandavas ready to adjust also. When Bhagwan himself has gone there as a Shantidut, asking just, if nothing, just 5 villages. But vision of oneness and love not there. So then gone. Akhandanand Maharaj said one very nice thing. He said the Mahabharat war is not a war between Pandavas and Kauravas. It is a war between Krishna and Dhritarashtra. You think about it. It's fantastic what he said. Both of them are non-participating in the war, but the war is between both of them actually. Between the attachment of Dhritarashtra and the detachment of Shri Krishna. The war is actually between them. Both of them did not fight, but they made everybody else fight. So, vision of oneness. So, one practical takeaway, apart from the highest level of seeker who has to see the whole universe as vision of the Lord, and in contemplation, one detaches. That is one level of understanding of this mantra. Second level is at our level, relative level, then what we should do? Try to see oneness wherever we are working. This human tendency is to create division. Please remember, it has been fed into our head that divide and rule is the policy of the British. It's not the policy of the British alone. It's the human tendency only to divide. Continuously one creates division because ego acts in division. Spirituality acts in harmonizing all divisions, in oneness. Now, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. What is that which is not allowing me to do this? Is all my attachments. So the second line says, Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. You renounce and you rejoice. So renounce what? Renounce attachment to name and form. That is the first meaning. Renounce attachment to name and form. So this has to be done in contemplation. When I sit for contemplation, I say there is only one truth which pervades everything. That alone exists. So we say Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jivve Nacha Ghrana Netre Nacha Vyoma Bhumir Na Tejo Na Vayuhu. 3 lines is of negation. That negation is this, Tyena Tyaktena. Reject all the names and forms. Now, reject all the names and forms where? In the mind, not outside. We cannot renounce anything outside because it doesn't belong to us only. Now, one man was there. He used to go by train every day to Churchgate station. And every day when he gets down, so he gets into the same compartment, same time. They time themselves. This 8:25 local. And they'll stand in one place and get into that same dabba every day, and they have a group and all that. So he used to do that. So now he gets down at some 9:30, and then as soon as he gets down at the station, what he sees? There's one beggar there. So every day he'll give 1 rupee to the beggar. This went on for a few years. Then one day what happened? That beggar was not there. He thought maybe he's gone somewhere. Tomorrow he may come. 4-5 days happened, 10 days happened. He didn't see the beggar at all. Then, after 2 months, one day he went to Dadar. And when he got down at Dadar, he saw the beggar was there. So out of curiosity, he asked him, Hare, you used to be sitting at Churchgate station. Now you are sitting here. 2 months ago you were there. He said, yeah, after that in these 2 months, my daughter got married. So I have given this Churchgate as dowry to my son-in-law. And I have shifted to Dadar. Churchgate belongs to him, that he can give in dowry to his son-in-law. So we say we renounce the world. How do you renounce the world? Does the world belong to us to renounce? I renounced everything. No. In the mind, we have to renounce the attachment to the name and form. Outside, if renunciation is required outside, one can do. But one can never say that I have renounced the world. Because world doesn't belong to us. I have renounced the attachment to the world. That I can renounce because that is in my head. So, tena tyaktena means that you renounce what? Attachment to the name and form. Not name and form. Name and form you cannot renounce. Can I renounce my body, my mind, my intellect right now? Cannot. The notion that I am this body, mind, intellect, that can be renounced. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. And you enjoy. Now, this is another very nice line. Renounce and rejoice. Generally, our rejoicing is by accumulating. Accumulate. How much more? Each one accumulates different things, that's all. But everybody wants to accumulate. Maximum we accumulate, maximum enjoyment. How much we can enjoy in that accumulation, that is another question. If we have some 30,000 things in our house, what are we actually using will not even be some 2,000 things. Rest all is occupying. And Diwali will take it out, clean, put it back. Some job has to be done, na? Diwali ke time, cleaning. One feels good. સાફ થઈ ગયું ઘર. કચરો એમને એમ જ છે. કચરાને સાફ કરીને પાછું મૂકી દીધું. It's like that. So we accumulate. See, externally also we accumulate. Internally also we are accumulating. Some memories and all, some 20 years ago, somebody said something. I still is there in the head. And when I see that person, I was 20 years ago, this man behaved like this. That fellow has forgotten. That is there in the head. So accumulate. One thinks that by accumulation, one will get more and more, because one feels secure. I have so many things, or I have this much money, or I have this many people. So we accumulate various things. Nowadays, people don't accumulate only money. They want to accumulate followers also. They feel very happy. On Instagram, I have 1.1 million followers. If that 1.1 million comes down to some 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, oh yeah, so many people. Half of them will be fake. But accumulate likes, accumulate followers, accumulate money, accumulate people, accumulate whatever. And the one single thought common behind accumulation is what? Kyarek jarur pade to. What if I need some time? Arey, that time you can find out, no? No, but we can't live like that. We should be prepared. So, at some level, we have to have those things. I'm not denying that. But I'm talking about the mindset, the psychology of accumulation to enjoy. Really speaking, I can only enjoy by renunciation, not by accumulation. Accumulation can only be a means. It cannot be the real source of enjoyment. You think about that. Any desire fulfillment also. Gurudev used to give a very nice example for this. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. So he would say that banana, you have to open the peel and eat the banana inside and renounce the peel. So tena tyaktena bhunjita. If you don't open that peel and renounce the peel and eat the banana with the peel, no, Swamiji, we to eat in Undhya, we put with the peel only. You still remove the peel, na, but we don't eat with the peel. Chocolate also. Do you eat with the wrapper or without wrapper? Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Next time you eat this chocolate, you should remember. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. This is Vedant in daily life. People want practical tips. Now I'm giving you now. While eating chocolate, remember, tena tyaktena bhunjita. Any desire, if you see, till I hold on to that desire, can I enjoy that desire? Or I have to let go of that desire when I'm enjoying? Think about it. Now this movie will come now. What is that movie? Tanaji will come on Friday. It will come. How do I know? I live in the world. There are banners all over. At least eyes are open now when we are in the world. I am not seeing any newspaper and all that. Is there one big, what is that? Hoarding is there. In 3D you can see. That also is written there. But I am saying go and see it. Superb movie. From the trailer to I can make out. Oh, that also you saw. Huh? That I saw. Certain selected movies I see because I have passion about my history, my country, my culture, and that movie is very, very nice. Powerful dialogues it has. It will make you proud. I'm not marketing that movie, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying that movie, when it releases, people have desire, movie. Now, when you go inside the movie theater, take the ticket and sit there, you have to drop the desire or not? If you keep saying movie dekhna, then can you enjoy that? No, that desire is dropped. So even when desire fulfillment happens, real happiness comes only when you are able to drop. At that time, you think about it. While seeing the movie, now somebody is going on calling you, and some business deal or something, and some urgent client or something keeps happening. Can you enjoy? Why? Because that time something else has come. Now that is occupying the head. So I'm not able to renounce all that. So I can't enjoy. Enjoyment comes only through renunciation at any level. Highest level of renunciation is drop the attachment to name and form, drop attachment to BMI, drop attachment to all the object, emotions and thoughts in the world. Then in the state of contemplation, I realize absolute bliss. That bliss is the permanent bliss. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. But this principle of renounce and rejoice, I can see in my life itself. Everywhere I can see that principle. Ice cream you want to enjoy, all desires if you drop, then only ice cream you can enjoy or not. While eating the ice cream, now the mind goes to the next desire. Ki iske baad kya? Then can you enjoy? Not possible. If you say nothing right now, and we do that or not, don't disturb me right now. I am watching this important match. Mind is fully into it. Nothing else. I've renounced everything else at that time. That principle, if I understood, that same thing I have to do in meditation. What the devotee says, when I am sitting in remembrance of the Lord, I forget everything. Any other thought comes, I say, not now. Vedanta will say, absorbed in consciousness, nothing else. Drop all attachment to BMI, all objects, emotions, thoughts, everything gone. So, tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Now, this word bhunjitha, generally people think it is to enjoy. But the word bhunjitha also has another meaning, and that is to save and to protect. Shankaracharya ji has given this in his commentary. To save and to protect. Palayethaha, that's the word he has used. Bhunjithaha is explained as palayethaha, meaning to protect. If I renounce my attachments, then only I can protect myself. What is the cause of my sorrow? Is my attachments only. As long as I hold on to my attachments, I will be miserable. So if I want to protect myself, what should I do? Drop my attachments. I will protect myself, I will save myself. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Renounce this and protect yourself. No New Year resolutions, etc. when one takes. I read something very nice. What is a New Year resolution? He said it's a to-do list for the first week of January. Lasts only for 7 days for some people. To-do list for first week of January. Supposed to be a new vision for the rest of the year and then life itself. So the New Year resolution, if it is that I want to drop my attachment to sleep, I want to get up and go and, anything, exercise, meditate or any such thing. Then when I drop that attachment, I'm protecting myself. Because if I hold on to that attachment, nothing. I will be lazy, lethargic, inert, inertia is there. Anywhere, if I want to protect myself, what hurts me maximum? We generally think people hurt me, objects hurt me, situations hurt me, but what actually hurts us is our own attachment. So, tena tyaktena bhunjitha. And who can really enjoy the world? Only a realized man actually enjoys the world. Why? Because one who has no attachment is free, can enjoy everything. We are conditioned by our raga and dvesha. And the illusion in our head is what I am attached to, that gives me happiness, and what I don't like, that gives me sorrow. But actually, if we see what? My attachment also gives me sorrow. What I hate also gives me sorrow. It's a false notion. When we say I am attached to this person because that person makes me feel happy. That's because you are superimposing that happiness there. Same person, after some time, becomes the cause of sorrow. In any relationship, it happens. One popular PJ is there, he says, it's about marriage, but it can apply in any relationship. Marriage begins with a heart and a diamond. And very soon you wish you had a club and a spade. Understood? Those who understood, understood. Patta hai na, patta, achar. That applies in any relationship. You start with a heart and a diamond, and very soon you want to club and spade, straight. Why? Because I unnecessarily think that, I am attached to coffee, morning coffee. If I get so blissful, and nowadays it is so warm and cozy. In the morning when I get up, it's so chill, and then hot cup of coffee. Now, all that is my imagination. No, Swami, it's real also. Pleasure is there, that's all. Nothing more than that. And when you don't get it, then irritation. Why? Attachment is only causing. So it's a false notion to think that attachment causes happiness and dvesha causes sorrow. No, raga and dvesha both will cause sorrow only. That's why one has to rise above raga and dvesha. So tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Renounce and enjoy. See, I spoke about renunciation of desire while fulfillment. But renunciation of desire without fulfillment also brings enjoyment. If continuously some desire is there and I just let it go, I'm happy. I don't have to only enjoy it or exhaust it, then only I will experience fulfillment. No, I can drop it. In the dropping itself, there is great joy. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. So renounce and rejoice, and renounce and save yourself also. How much renunciation saves? It is not possible otherwise. Because see, the mind, when it is said, Tena tyaktena bhunjitha, what to renounce? In general, we spoke about attachment. If you go into the Bhashya of Shankaracharya, he will say, renounce the 3 forms of desires, which is called Eshanatraya. What is Eshanatraya? First is Vitta Eshana. Vitta Eshana means the desire for wealth. Second is Putra Eshana. Desire for progeny. And third is Loka Eshana, which is desire for popularity. Now, all desires they have classified into these 3: wealth, progeny, and popularity. And so a sannyasi is welcomed in Purna Kumbha with the mantra in Kaivalya Upanishad and in the other Mahanarayana Upanishad also, where it says, Na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena, tyage naike, amritatva manashuhu. Because we want to acquire these 3 to become permanently happy. With wealth, I want to be permanently happy. How? Because when I have lot of wealth, then I can do so many things, and great name, great fame, achievement, all that will happen. So wealth will lead to Loka Eshana. With Putra Eshana also I want to become immortal. Why? Because this body cannot live for long, but my child is this body in another form, which is actually the cause of all the sorrow for that child. Because the parent is trying to live their ambition through the child. Today, a lot of frustration and suffering of the children is because of that. That has been there for many centuries and millenniums, but today it has become much more because the parent himself or herself has become so competitive that what they could not achieve, they want to achieve through the child. But child is meant to do something else, has come with his or her baggage. Now, why are you pushing through that much? But that is Putra Eshana. My child has to be like this only. There is increasing awareness to give choice to the children also, but still that is much, much lesser compared to the amount of enforcement that is happening. So Vitta Eshana, Putra Eshana, Loka Eshana. So when he says Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha, what Shankaracharya ji has written is, this is a spiritual seeker who has renounced these 3. If I renounce these 3, then what will I do in life? that question does not arise for the spiritual seeker of the highest caliber, because when that three are renounced, the person says, I am Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam. That is the job to be done. Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam. And that Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam will not happen till these three are there. Because why? Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam requires me to turn within. These three want to push me outside. That conflict will always be there. So I cannot turn within. See, forget dropping this completely. That is the Uttam Adhikari will do. But at our level, we should at least start dropping these to certain extent that we are able to sit quietly. Think about it. When we want to meditate today, what are we? Any of these only will trouble, no? No, I have to go for work. Vitta Yeshana. My child has to go to school. Putra Yeshana. Something. One of those, these three will manifest in some or the other form. And functionally it is possible at certain time it will happen. But throughout the day, so morning time, suppose we say office jana hai, school jana hai, all that. Okay, afternoon time, if you are a homemaker, you have some time, then do at that time. Or if you are working professional, come back in the evening and then spend some time. We have to find that time. But generally these will be overpowering so much that spirituality, meditation, swadhyaya, all that will take a backseat. So he says, Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. You renounce these three. To whatever extent I am able to renounce these, to that extent I will be able to apply Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam. So this is Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Now renounce this and you enjoy. And as I said, the real enjoyment happens only by the man of realization. Why? Because the man of realization has no attachments and sees the whole world as only one. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. So three types of Vaishanas we have to drop. Now, ma gridha kasya svidhanam. Don't covet anybody's wealth. So again, this has different meanings. First meaning of this is drop greed. Greed. If one is talking about dropping desire, the next part of this line is talking about drop the greed. Because desire will lead to greed. And greed is not just connected to money, it is in everything. Insatiable thirst, that is called greed. And one wants more and more and more, that no matter how much one is having, one still feels it is less. That mindset is called greed mindset. And today in the world, that greed is so justified like anything. I don't know when, in 60s, 70s, some point in time, that there was a whole movement, greed is good. There were all songs and all that, and everything in America, there was a big movement. Even today, many people talk about greed. That greed is required for becoming successful. Killer instinct. If you don't be greedy, you cannot become successful in the world. Killer instinct is there. It is correct. It will kill you only. That's why it is called killer instinct. But they use it in terms of, no, it's supposed to kill the competition and kill the opponent and then make me more successful. But it is killing you. Greed. Greed is good. A lot of people today say that, no, we cannot become content. Because if we become content, how will we grow? Contentment and growth are not opposed to each other. They are actually complementary to each other. Greed is not required for growth. Because greed comes out of insecurity. For growth, what is required? Inspiration is required. That is required. Then one will grow. No need of greed to grow. Inspiration will make me grow in a balanced way without losing the macro picture. In greed, I lose the macro picture. I become fixated on one. In inspiration, I can enjoy what I am getting also. In greed, I can't even enjoy what I have and what I am getting. I am constantly looking for what I don't have. Full time. So Ma gridha kasyas with dhanam. He says, don't covet anybody's wealth. Now that's interesting. To such a seeker who is so highly advanced, why is this line being told? Ma gridha kasyas with dhanam. See, for you and I, it is at this level ki drop greed. And remember, by greed, all the 6 impurities are meant. Not only greed. All 6, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. All 6 are meant. Ma gridha kasyas vidhana means drop these 6. That's why this is for Uttam Adhikari. Imagine it is saying drop all the attachments. And drop all the 6 impurities. Drop attachment to name and form. Drop the Yeshanatraya. Drop 6 impurities. When we hear all this, what will generally people say? ऐसा करेंगे तो हम क्या तो साधु ही बन जाएंगे. संसार में कैसे जिएंगे स्वामी जी? That's why I said this is meant for the Uttam Adhikari who has enough vairagya from the world and who says, enough I have seen, there is nothing here. Like people in Bombay, they are dying to go out of Bombay. They have seen enough of Bombay. So every opportunity they get, they want to run out of Bombay. Saturday, Sunday, go. Where? लोनावाला जाओ, लवासा जाओ, महाबलेश्वर जाओ, पंचगनी जाओ, कहीं तो जाओ, but Bombay से निकलो. Nothing is there here. And the funny thing is, those people who are outside Bombay, they are coming inside to see. चलो Bombay जाएंगे. So seeker is like that. Who has seen enough in the world, he will be able to drop, tuck, all. And Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Now to that seeker, why is it said, Mahagrida kasyas vidhanam? Is he going to covet anybody's wealth? He is not going to covet anybody's wealth. This is to tell us what is are we Uttam Adhikari or not? It is for us. So that we can decide that am I ready for Ishavasyam idam sarvam or not. So Ishavasyam idam sarvam is the instruction. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha magrida kasyas vidhanam is the eligibility for doing that instruction. If somebody wants to know, should I renounce the world or not? Then eligibility is this. Am I able to drop attachments? Am I able to drop the Yeshanatraya? Am I able to drop the 6 impurities? Then I am ready to renounce the world. And renunciation of the world is not, again, as I said, renouncing the world physically, but it is renouncing it mentally, that I am able to full time contemplate on the Supreme. That's why this is meant for Uttam Adhikari. But if I am not ready for it, then what to do? That second mantra will tell us. But why is this important to know right now? Because see, always the biggest picture must be known first. That this is the goal, this is the destination I have to reach. So many people get into so many spiritual practices as well as even different cultures or different religions also, without even understanding what is the ultimate goal. Where will this lead me to? What is the final goal? If that is where I want to reach, then I will take this route or not. नहीं स्वामी जी, हम तो रूट लेंगे, फिर देखेंगे कहीं ना कहीं तो पहुंच जाएंगे. Do you drive like that? Take the car and drive. Wherever the road takes, I will go. Does one do that anywhere? There will be a destination. And then if I don't know the route, then I will put on the Google map, put the destination, then the route will come, then I will follow that route. But in life, how many people do? And strange thing is, they will take up any sadhanas also. All different types of sadhanas. But where do you want to reach? And I am doing right now pranic healing. Then I am doing this pyramid meditation. Then I am doing some crystal gazing. Then I am also doing some karma yoga. And in between, I did the Bhagavad Gita course also. And now I am also doing some Kundalini Jagriti. अरे क्यों कर रहे भाई? कहाँ पहुँचना है आपको? So even if I am exploring different things to find out where I belong, before that I should know where I want to reach. No. If I want only some peace of mind, Swamiji, I just want some quietude of the mind. If that is the goal, okay, then choose anyone and stick there. This also, this also, this also. And then confusion galore. This person is saying like this and this person is saying like this. Now which one will I follow? And the third person is saying something else only. It is all very confusing. I have dropped everything now. I have tried everything. Nothing works. Why? Because I didn't choose my goal. I didn't stick to one. I didn't go properly into the depth. So for us to know what is eligibility, this mantra is saying very clearly. You decide what is the goal and then follow. Uttamadhikari wants to realize the Supreme. What is eligibility? Drop these three. Drop attachments and raga and dvesha. Drop Eshanatraya. Drop 6 impurities. Realize the truth by doing contemplation. You reach the goal. So, one meaning is this. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha magridha kasyasvid dhanam. Don't covet anybody's wealth, meaning drop the 6 impurities. Now, Shankaracharya has given another meaning. Kasyasvid dhanam. Whose is wealth? Is the question. Dhanam mean not just the money. Dhanam is this whole world. We are trying to covet this world only, no? Dhanam here means anything. I covet name, fame, progeny, prosperity, all that I am trying to covet. When he says here, this question is Kasyasvit dhanam. Whose is this wealth? Does wealth belong to us? See, one meaning is Ma Kridha Kasyasvit dhanam means don't covet anybody's wealth. That is one meaning that we saw. So drop greed. Be happy with your hard work, what you get, inspiration, all that we saw, contentment, that part. The other meaning is whose is wealth? Does wealth belong to me? Answer is in satsang it doesn't belong to me. Outside satsang it is mine only. If it doesn't belong to you, give it to me. No. Swamiji, it doesn't belong to you also. That's why I'm not giving. Whose is really wealth? This question is to say that really wealth only belongs to the Lord. Temporarily I am a custodian of that wealth. That's all. Does wealth say, it's very interesting, does wealth say I belong to you? Wealth never says I belong to you. Wealth to keeps going to everybody. Yesterday it was with somebody else, today it is with me, tomorrow it will go to somebody else. It never says I belong to you, but we say, Mera. And Bhagwan who is Mera and who is telling I am yours and you are mine, वो सब ठीक है लेकिन ये तो मेरा है. भगवान मेरे हैं कि नहीं पता नहीं, धन तो मेरा है. That I won't leave. Magridha Kasyasvidhanam. Whose is the wealth? Wealth belongs to Bhagwan. You see the attitude in Ramayana. Ravan's attitude and Hanumanji's attitude. It's a beautiful depiction. Towards Sita ji. What is Ravan's attitude? Kidnaps Sita ji. Tries to own Sita ji. Tries to marry Sita ji. Sita ji belongs to whom? To Lord Ram. And he tries to capture that. That is, who is the symbol of Ravan? Ravan did that, Swamiji. All of us are trying to do that. Now, what belongs to Bhagwan, we are trying to own it, possess it, control it, enjoy it. What was Hanumanji's attitude towards Sita ji? I am your son, I am your sevak, how can I serve? Sita ji is symbolic of Prakriti, this whole universe. What should be our attitude? That this belongs to Bhagwan. And Bhagwan has trusted me and given this wealth, given this capability, given so many things to me. Let me serve the Lord. That wealth and that capability, by wealth we mean everything. Not just the wealth of money, wealth of love, wealth of talent, wealth of knowledge, wealth of whatever, time, energy, efficiency, talents, everything. That much wealth Bhagavan has given to us. What am I doing with that wealth to serve the society? I think Narayan Murthy ji said, or J.R.D. Tata said, I don't know, I forget, one of them said that wealth is like cow dung. The more you accumulate, the more it stinks. How am I using that wealth? What kind of difference am I making to people? Genuinely, not for the sake of CSR showing in the balance sheet, namne kar diya. Genuinely, because this wealth has come to me, one, by grace of Bhagavan, it belongs to Bhagavan. Two, entire society also is responsible for the wealth. For me to acquire that much of wealth, the whole society also has played its part. And what will I do beyond a point with the amount of wealth that I am hoarding? What am I going to do? I am going to die one day. The next generation is going to take it. Interesting, Gurudev in his talks he used to say that suppose a businessman is there who has worked very hard and he has come up from the scratch and built his huge empire. Hard work, he knows the value of that. Now what they will do, they will give it the children the good comforts and conveniences and everything. And if they are, clear about it, they will also make the son and the progeny, the daughter, whoever it is, go through certain challenges to become stronger, and so that they also can carry on the legacy of what has been built, not spoil them with complete comfort. But he used to say that the third generation which comes, sometimes it is observed that the potential that was there in the first generation, lesser than that will be in the second. In the third, it will be much lesser. It's just a general observation. It need not be a generalization. It can be other way also. But he would say that when the person is accumulating and keeping, and the next generation is just using that, they have not earned it, they have not worked hard for it, then that slowly degenerates into comfort and that slowly makes them fall. So one has to be very clear on that part, that what am I doing with that wealth, that am I able to serve? And as I said, it's not money, it's everything. So many people have knowledge, talent, capabilities. Share, let people benefit out of it. How do I serve? So Magrida Kasya Svidhanam means, to whom does this wealth belong? It belongs to only the Lord. So as much as I can put in the service of the Lord, our true wealth is the wealth of that devotion. When I put all this in service of Bhagavan, then that is the true wealth that I am cultivating. Because that is the wealth which will go with me. Will money go with me? It will not go. My mind will go with me. So dharma will go with me, karma will go with me. Jnana will go with me. Bhakti will go with me. Seva bhav will go with me. And whatever I've cultivated, if I've renounced these 6 impurities and all these, then that light mind goes. If I have not renounced all these, that heavy burdened mind will go ahead. So actually when he says renounce and rejoice, this line has a lot of implication even for the life ahead. If I have come into this world, I have gone lighter from this world, then that is the best use of human life. If I have come into this world, I have accumulated more vasanas and gone, then that is the sad part or not? Because this is the only yoni where I can exhaust vasanas and realize the truth without accumulating new. If I act in a right attitude. But if I don't, then I add more and more and more. See that Manushya yoni is the karma yoni. All the other yonis are only bhoga yoni. So animal, bird, plant, etc. don't accumulate any new karma. They only exhaust. Even devatas, gandharvas, they will not accumulate. They will exhaust. Manushya yoni only we can exhaust or accumulate. So tena tyaktena bhunjita is another line, another meaning is this, that you renounce and rejoice. So now this is the first mantra. All these different meanings are there. There's one meaning of Dvaita Bhav also that has been given by Gurudev here. That when he says Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita, Tena there means Bhagwan. By the Lord you have been given this. Tena, by Tena means by the Lord, Ishena. By that Lord, when we have been given all these, then renounce the sense of doership and then just serve the Lord. So Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita Magridha Kasya Svidhanam. That is one beautiful line which says this. And I will end with this, that this line, this mantra also tells us about 4 Purusharthas. You know, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. This is about Moksha Purushartha. Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita is about Kama Purushartha. Magridha Kasya Svidhanam is about Artha Purushartha. And the next mantra, Kurvanneveha Karmani Jiji Vishe Shatagam Samaha, is about Dharma Purushartha. That live in a dharmic way. It's a very nice thing. That how 4 Purusharthas covered in the 2 mantras. So Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat is the Moksha Purushartha, highest. The means towards that Moksha Purushartha is Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitaha, which is Kama Purushartha. See the definition of Kama there. Renounce and rejoice is the definition of Kama, not accumulate and enjoy. Magridha Kasya Svidhanam is the Artha Purushartha, that how to get wealth, not out of greed, but out of contentment and inspiration. And the next mantra, Kurvanneveha Karmani, is about Dharma Purushartha, how to act righteously in the world. So now if somebody is not ready for this, suppose we say, Swamiji, this is very difficult to drop all the 6 impurities, drop all the 3 yashanas and drop all attachments and then steadily contemplate on the Lord and see everyone only as divine and sit quietly in contemplation and withdraw from all attachments. Very difficult to do. Then what to do? I have still desires, I have still so many other things to do. So the next level will come now. So the second wave is the second mantra, Kurvanneveha Karmani. Did I give you the homework to read the commentary of that? No. So now you read the commentary of the first mantra and the second mantra. So tell me the page number. 75 is the first mantra. Yeah. 75 to 96. Now you can read 75 to 96. And we will take up the second mantra in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.